Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, presented by AT&T 5G. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer. It's a beautiful Thursday. David Goss, CD9, Charlie Davies, wearing this medium. What is that, Charlie? Before we jump in here, that shirt doesn't fit you, bro. Like,
no, it doesn't, because this is the flyweight in DeMarcus Beasley's kit, and we all know he is thin. He always said, "I'm skinny swole." Man, this is just.
He's pound for pound the strongest player in the U.S. men's national team pool.
Nice.
But the key is pound for pound.
Yeah,
pound
we got
pound.
a welterweight. You're welterweight, Charlie. What's your weight class these days? What'd you
right
wrestle
now?
at?
Yeah, I'm up there. I gotta slim down.
You might have to strap on some trash bags and do some laps here.
Get back to my wrestling days. Yeah, exactly.
Big show today. A lot of news. Hernan Losada's days with DC are over, and Gareth Bale's days with DC might be beginning here at some point. We'll talk through that one. U.S. Open Cup was wild in round 3. Hit that as well, and much, much more as we preview MLS Week 8. But we got to start with the big news of the day. To go to MLSsoccer.com or the MLS app for more information. The 2022 MLS All-Star Game presented by Target. You know it's on August 10th. You know it's in Minnesota. We now know it's MLS against Liga MX again, and it's also a prime opportunity for me to grow my collection of MLS-branded crest jerseys. You know I'm all about that life. What do you think, guys? MLS Liga MX. Happy about that? Excited about that? We know LA was a blast last year, ton of drama, some bragging rights to go along with it, great parties, etc., all the things that All-Star's supposed to be. Are you jacked by year 2 of MLS Liga MX?
Yeah, definitely. It's star power. It's the giants of our region. I think now, coming out of COVID, another year of CCL, there's a little bit of bite to some of these individual matchups, some of these individual moments. We saw Pepe, right? Like, Pepe was the story, scored the penalty kick shot, and then he announces the U.S. like a week later, and it's just all the juice running together. It was great. And Minnesota, I don't know, it's as good a stadium atmosphere, I think, as there is in MLS, and great greenway, great biking city. So it'll be summer. I'll get out on the rental bikes. It'll be good.
It's a great time to be in Minnesota, right? You know, if we could get out to the lakes here before that would be nice as well. But look, at Liga MX MLS, I think that we'd all grown a little bit. I don't know. It had become a little tiresome to have these foreign clubs come in year after year, and you didn't know the intensity level that the game was going to be at, and you didn't know how serious that lineup was going to be from whether it be Arsenal or Tottenham or Everton or whatever it was, fill in the blank when they came. Although that Bayern Munich moment in Portland was pretty fun many years back. But it just has more substance, I think, it is an all-star game. And I love the fact that it combines both, that you get to see an all-star team on the other side. And I got to say, watching the game last year, pitch side, like that was not a game that either team was just sort of like ho-humming off. Players weren't like, don't care, don't want to get hurt, not going to put any effort into this. There truly was a level of intensity there that I think improves just the experience for everybody, whether you're there or you're watching on TV. But Minnesota, Charlie, do you have any like Minnesota memories? You don't strike me as a Minnesota guy who would have spent a lot of times in the Great Lakes region.
That's where you're wrong. I grew up in New Hampshire. Okay.
Yeah, see, that's not Minnesota. That's a long way away.
Very similar in
Is it?
terms of lakes.
Lake life, lake people.
Yep. Greenery, mountains. We are very alike. So, yeah, I fit in perfectly with the Minnesota
Just like a
crowd.
glove. You got any good memories there then?
Yes, I do. I have a fantastic memory. Actually, it was with my man Goss and Max Bretos. It was the first time I got to commentate a broadcast U.S. Open Cup semifinals. And I got to walk around the city, hang out with the people, and wrestle Goss in the new stadium.
I thought we were just making jokes about welterweights and flyweights, etc.
To be clear, the wrestling started because I told him I could beat him in one-on-one in basketball. I have never wrestled before. That's not my space. But I figured I just need to show Charlie a little bit of how I could physically challenge him. I lost. I then drank more because of that. And someone moved my flight time, so I didn't make that flight the next day as well.
What's the finishing move on Dave, Charlie? Walk us through from a technical perspective. how one defeats David Goss. Is this a pin? Is this a tap out? What is this? How does
it's just a takedown and just kind of showing control. So you usually grab an underhook, and that way you can control your opponent, get him off balance, and then you bring him down.
Do we have any witnesses? Do we have anybody who might have had a cell phone camera out? Because I'm remembering right now, I don't know if anybody else remembers this, the infamous Simon Borg, David Goss, cake pop arm wrestling incident.
Oh boy.
And from time to time, I still go back and watch that, and it's one of the most wonderful periods of my entire life. So I'm wondering if I can experience this visually as opposed to just via the storytelling that you guys are so delightfully passing my way. That silence is a no. I'm guessing
Goss is frozen.
that
I don't know.
is a no. Yeah, he doesn't want to share this story whatsoever.
I don't know. I feel
there?
like the internet gods are telling us that Charlie's been lying over the last few minutes. That's just me, but
you pinned the world-class athlete is what you're telling us with a few beers.
What?
What?
Yeah.
What? Oh, okay. Well, we'll just
I think
that
we're
story,
breaking up. Shh.
That story will have to live on in infamy with different opinions on different sides, but we do know August 10th, MLS versus Liga MX, the All-Star game presented by Target. Going down, you can watch that one in the U.S. On ESPN and Univision, and in Canada on TSN and TVA Sports, and then it's going to be in 190 countries around the world. The kickoff is slated for 8:30 p.m. Eastern. That's all information that you can just file away for many months down the line. I will say that I made a trip to Minnesota, among a couple actually, before they even played a game in MLS, and did back in the day of The Word on MLSsoccer.com. I don't know if you listeners out there remember that. Wrote like a 6,000 word piece on the soccer culture in Minnesota, and it is rich, and it is diverse, and it's got a very interesting history with a lot of protagonists that are worth remembering. I'll tweet the link to that story, but I just want to shout out the Lagos family. I want to shout out all the people that have built soccer in Minnesota from, way back. We're talking 60s, 70s. Immigrants coming in. We're talking NASL with the Kicks, and then so many iterations from the Thunder and the Lightning and everything else all up through that. So go check out that story. We're going to have a great time in Minnesota. That's all I know. We're going to have some beautiful weather. We're going to have some wonderful beers. We're going to have some wonderful games of soccer, whether it be pickup or the Wednesday night game between the pros. We're going to have fun. Minnesota, by the way, hosting Chicago this weekend on ESPN. So that'll be a little precursor. You can check that one out to see what the fans are like. If you'd like to, on national TV, go check that out as well. All right, let's go. Coming up today from the AT&T Virtual Studios, we're talking U.S. Open Cup. We're talking Hernan Losada. We're talking Gareth Bale. We are talking a new contract for Carlos Vela. We've buried that lead. It seems like that's done. Doug McIntyre started the reporting. Tom Bogert confirmed it. You know how we feel about that one. So we'll talk about Vela and what LAFC could do with that other open DP spot they now have. Talk about El Texas Derby and the return of the Copa de Tejas to the land of juice. Didn't have a ton of it last year. Has a good bit more this year, and then we'll go into the mailbag. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, Wago. Okay. U.S. Open Cup. God, I love this tournament. God, it's been a couple years now that we haven't had it, and it's easy to forget how insane, how wonderful it can be and the stories that come out of it. The third round is over, so we're on to the round of 32. If you would like to keep up with the tournament, of course, MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app will always beat you over the head with that. You should subscribe to Extra Time, listen to us, etc. But the Cup.us is like the resource for this. So go check them out. They cover this tournament like nobody else can, and it's worth checking out what Josh Hakala does with that resource.
And if you become a fan, you would be joining Chicharito, who went onto their site to learn about the history of the U.S. Open Cup this week, and then tweeted out the link, which I think may have crashed the site for a couple moments. It was a bit more traffic than anticipated. Yeah.
Yes. I was talking to Josh about it. We were trying to get him onto MLS Today, and we were having some technical issues with Twitter Spaces. And he was like, yeah, I'm dealing with a lot right now. The site just crashed. I'm pretty sure Chicharito just broke us. So they got that fixed. But look, MLS teams win at 13-3-1 in the third round. So vast majority winners here. Out, Columbus, Chicago, RSL, and Austin. At home, MLS was 8-1-1, and away they were 5-2-0. So 8 more MLS teams have now entered into the round of 32. That's New York City, New England, Philly, Nashville, Kansas City, Colorado, Portland, and Seattle. The draw just went down. We literally, in our pre-show meeting, were watching this draw. Shout out to Harper, absolute legend, for shuffling the envelopes and for doing it with such class and style. Though I would have liked more MLS against lower league matchups, I can also respect that now we are guaranteed to get more lower division teams onto the round of 16 because there are a lot of like USL 1 versus USL Championship or USL 1 versus USL 1 matchups going forward. But I have to ask this question, and we'll dig in. What was your favorite cup set? Which that's a term I absolutely love. Dave, give me your cup set. What did you enjoy the most as far as MLS teams getting knocked off?
A lot of it was great, so I don't know that there's one you can choose. But if I had to, I'd go back to the one I chose on Monday as the one I was looking most forward to, which was San Antonio over Austin. You knew that their fans would host it and have the energy that you want around this moment. A ton of Austin fans traveled up. It's a team in San Antonio that has a lot of players with MLS experience. They know the level. They know the challenge. So you get extra time. You get great goals. You get a cup set. You get an atmosphere. Like, it's everything that we've been missing for the last 2+ years that I wanted to see. And it was just a lot of fun in that game. And San Antonio somehow hang on at the end, the double save and the dying moments. I don't know how Fagundes doesn't open extra time with either an assist or then a goal, but it was a lot of fun all the way through this game.
Fagundes, he's just such a good player. I think we kind of took him for granted for a long time, and we're starting to get back to the point where we're appreciating him again. But you have to shout out some names here. Elliot Collier, Chicago Fire, not exactly a legend, but he got like 50+ games for the Fire. Got the tying goal in the 82nd minute. Got in the near post, poked it by. It looked like Austin were going to move on. Big for them. You go to extra time. You got Mo Abu hitting that big crossfield switch, which is just a beautiful, beautiful pass. Former Crew player. Headed across for Carter Manley, former Minnesota United player, for the header, down and pass. And then you mentioned the antics at the end. The Jordan Farr, he's the goalkeeper for San Antonio. He's hitting the backflips after the game on the field. Wildly athletic. The save he had off his butt crack, also awesome. And then I don't know if you saw the ball kids as
the ball boy was
oh
amazing.
My God, what a performer.
In the pink shirt too, so like popped, and he basically runs on the field.
He jumps
as
the
San
board.
Antonio's making the double save. He jumps the board. He's on the grass behind the line, and he's like on his knees just screaming as the play happens, and it was the best part of the night.
Yeah, there was an element of showmanship that Charlie that you could appreciate, I feel, from that kid who was absolutely loving it and Austin not loving it. And look, Austin, this is what I was kind of warning you about. Like, L's happen, so just slow your roll. And if you want to call this a bonus game, you're wrong. There's no U.S. Open Cup game that's a bonus game.
You
lost.
Go back
you lost to your Hill Country
I didn't
rivals.
know what you were talking about for the first 30
you lost
seconds.
your rivals. You can't throw this away and be like, oh, we don't have the depth. Driussi started. A bunch of first-team players started.
All
right, we're
moving
moving on.
yourself.
All right, Detroit
my
City
God.
over the Crew is my cup set. Speaking of incredible atmospheres, you got like the train going by in the background. You got the smoke popping in Detroit. They, of course, now have moved up to the USL Championship. And just are rabid, just ready for this moment. And they take advantage of the moment. And so we'll get to see them move on to the next round, which is awesome, and potentially on to the next one. I think they're one of those teams that's in a USL Championship versus USL Championship situation. I want to say they have Louisville in the round of 32. But Crew lose. Crew have not been playing well, been poor from the Crew. And Caleb Porter doesn't do the post-game press conference. And I was looking around here. Let's see if I can find it. I don't know if I can. Oh, here it is. Yeah, here's a column from today in the Columbus Dispatch from Michael Arrace. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's been a long-time columnist there, covered the Crew for a long time. And the headline on it is, amid Porter's silence, Crew fans can wonder whether coach is out of answers. Wow. If you don't think the U.S. Open Cup matters, that's a column in the local paper on the Crew, and that is not the headline that you wanted if you were a Columbus supporter, player, or front office person or manager after this loss to Detroit City. That's rough.
And the Crew's big story has been they've gone behind in games. They can't score. They went up 1-0 in the 3rd minute of this game on a penalty kick. Like, if there's not a better scenario to play from, and I thought they controlled the first half. The wind was wild. They were against the wind. They still controlled the ball. They controlled the game. They're just not goal dangerous. Nothing in the final third threatens a backline. There's nothing that comes from surprise. There's not a ton of movement of the backline to create openings. I think that's an interesting point in a game where you continue to see the same issues play out.
It feels like it's a little bit of the Lucas Elrayan show, and then like a big shrug. Outside that, if he doesn't have magic, then they may not have a goal. It's been tough for them in MLS and tough for them in the U.S. Open Cup. Charlie, what is your cup set of the round?
The mighty Hailstorm.
Oh,
they take down the Switchbacks, then they take down
Hailstorm.
RSL. I mean, what better story out of U.S. Open Cup? That's what this tournament's all about, is giving a dream to some of these smaller clubs, and they're taking full advantage of it.
Did they even have time for it to be a dream?
What I will say is what a better
game.
But what a better way to launch your brand, to launch your team in a new market, than to do this, right? You're now going to get national attention before you've even hosted a home game in USL League One. Like, this is so perfect for them. This is such a cool story. It's just fun. 10 minutes of extra time at the end of this game. And Iman Zayed, the head coach, was like on the sideline. You could see the amount of times he put up fingers like 5 minutes, maybe 6, maybe 9. And then they ended up playing 10. The whole thing was ridiculous. But it, as Charlie said, this has been sort of what we love about this cup competition and what it can be, which is a team out of nowhere, never playing a game before, just knocking off giants.
Where is Windsor, Colorado?
It's basically Fort Collins.
Is it? I'm desperately Googling right now to try to figure out.
It's like 20 minutes east of Fort Collins.
Yeah. No, okay. It's Fort Collins. So it's just north of Denver. Like you're getting up a little bit close to the border with Wyoming there. Like a natural rivalry with Cheyenne, or Laramie.
Yeah. And on the way to Omaha, which is still a long drive, but is who they got drawn against, which kind of sucks because you want to see those teams against, a Rapids, for example. But hopefully, fingers crossed, one of them gets the Rapids in the next round.
One of them will get through. I was a little bit frustrated not with Harper, but with the way the envelopes fell. Harper, legend, could never say a negative word about her. What an absolutely scintillating broadcast of the U.S. Open Cup draw that was. Jim Curtin agrees with me. He called it electric. It was wonderful. Shout out to David Applegate, who's done a great job with the National Soccer Hall of Fame change in procedure and voting as well. But I was a little frustrated because I want maximum MLS, USL League One, NISA, etc. matchups. And the thing is, I have to remember is that we got that guaranteed. I think we got 17 in the third round, and that's a huge step forward. And we will continue to get more, and a lot of them will come in the round of 16 because we got so many USL One against USL One, or we got MLS USL Championship on USL Championship. So if you want the full draw, go check out MLSsoccer.com or the Cup.us or Wikipedia or wherever you get that information. What's your number one matchup in the round of 32? And then we'll turn the magnifying glass on DC United. What do you got, Charlie? What's number one for you?
It's going to be a perfect transition because I'm going DC United versus New York Red Bulls. I mean, that's the rivalry. Atlantic Cup, right? Here we go. U.S. Open Cup, D.C., I think is in some turmoil. And then New York Red Bulls, I felt like they started strong this year, but it seems to kind of starting to, die down a little bit.
It's waning a little bit. So, hey, look, you think back to, let's say, poor D.C. seasons of the past, and they got a long way to go to match that level. But what was it, 2013, the historically bad year? No, right? 2012 maybe back in there?
No, 2013 was the cup when they beat RSL.
You remember the Lewis Neal goal and the dramatics, and they win Open Cup, and they knock off RSL, which was a juggernaut at that time. Maybe they can use this tournament as another jumping off point. I'm going to shout out Richmond Kickers hosting Charlotte FC, another USL League One team hosting Charlotte. Charlotte, had to scrape and claw past Greenville, John Harkes' team, and I love that now they've had to make a second trip in that region to go play a USL One team. So we'll see what they can do with that one. But that's a great matchup. Kickers, Charlotte FC. Dave, give me yours, and we'll dive into Hernan Losada and everything that's coming out of that.
I've got two because I got gypped on. I really want to see San Antonio host another game, but they travel to Houston. It's a close trip. I think there'll be a good traveling section there for Houston. We were there for Open Cup final when they won it. I think first year under new management, new ownership, new group. Open Cup obviously has to be a target as one to win, and they just snuck through against RGV. And then my other one will be LA Galaxy traveling to Cal United. They won in stoppage time against FC Tucson in an incredible goal. And, the Galaxy are the name, I think, in U.S. soccer circles. So as a new team, as a smaller team, if you host the Galaxy, like everyone will notice, and I think that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, could be very cool. I love the U.S. Open Cup. Continue to follow it. We are going to do our best to be at the Open Cup final this year. No promises, but like 90% promise. Hopefully we'll do that post-game show, same way we did at Houston, which was one of the highlights of my time at MLS, my decade now. All right, let's talk Hernan Losada. He did not last the decade in MLS. He lasted 40 games, 16 wins, 19 losses, 5 draws. They were resurgent last year, but didn't make the playoffs. We talked to him a number of times on this show, I believe, and he was super open and engaging and fun to chat with. But it seems like perhaps less fun on the, for the players. And there are some reports out there. Stephen Goff really sort of leading the reporting on this. Pablo Mauro, of course, Charlie Boehm, etc. That some players were not so happy with his methods, which were very intense. And it just seemed like maybe even from the jump, that there were some personality clashes. Like people didn't necessarily see eye to eye, whether it be in the front office or otherwise. There were a lot of times where Hernan's asking for more, whether it be players or spending, etc. And this year the results haven't been good. I would encourage anybody who's even halfway interested in this to go check out Z Soccer Podcast, ZEE Soccer Podcast. That is Julian Gressel and Fabian Erbers, and they do a great show, and they had about a 25-minute conversation literally when Julian Gressel got home from training after this was announced to the players yesterday. And he guided Fabian through a lot of the reasoning or a lot of his thoughts behind it, and Julian was happy about it. He said it improved him as a pro. He was fitter. He was able to recover more, but he acknowledged it was very difficult and intense, and the demands were extremely high to be not just a professional, but perhaps more than that. We joked a bunch about like the body scans and the diets and everything else, and that's all well and good.
I'm getting in a lot of trouble this week for your liberal use of the word "we." I think we need to identify when Weeby does something and when we do something. I don't have an issue with Austin fans.
Are you?
I don't make jokes about the body
scans.
Are
you with me or are you against me? All right, I made a lot of jokes about body scans, etc.
I'm getting Weeby against the world T-shirt.
That's fine. That's fine. I enjoyed that. Hernan Losada's out though, and this is it's a quick change, and he came in with some fanfare, and he might not have been the first choice for DC, but he was a young coach with a good early pedigree and a lot of interesting ideas. Charlie, and I know you're writing a column for MLSsoccer.com about what it's like to be a player when there's a managerial change. So first, I want to get your thoughts on this particular change for DC. Chad Ashton takes over. He had taken over when Ben Olsen left as well. He's a longtime servant of the club, so to speak, has the respect of the players, understands the league, etc. And they'll begin a process to find the next head coach of DC United. So Hernan Losada out. In this manner, this early in the season, what do you make of it?
Well, I think it's obvious. There was a clash between him and the players in the front office because he wanted things done a certain way. And when you hear a player, as experienced as Julian Gressel is, say, man, he was pushing everybody and almost to the point to his detriment over the line. And I think for a lot of foreign coaches that come to this league, you have to understand the balance because the mentality and what is possible and the makeup and, some European coaches, they do 2 trainings a week, 2 training sessions every day, each week. That is not going to fly for 99% of the players in this league. It just doesn't work. So making adjustments and trying to figure out what is right, how far can I push these guys without pushing over the line, and then also giving players freedom. You have to read the room. You might have your intentions coming into, the squad and with the league, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to adjust and be open to change. And if you're not, if you're focused on only your ways, it's not going to work out. I can promise you, it's not going to work out. So I think with his style, he came in. It was a new. I think there was a new burst of energy because it's a new coach coming from Europe. He has all these ideas. He wants to play, I think an attacking style, high press style, but you can't do that 100% of the time. Everyone knows that. You can't press in a game for 90 minutes, no matter how good you are or how fit you are. It doesn't work like that. So it makes sense because the results weren't coming. And if you play that way and you're getting results, people will deal with it. People will keep that mouth quiet because you're winning. But as soon as it goes the other way, it's very easy to say, we're off this train. And that's exactly what happened.
I look at it from the other side, and I think obviously Charlie's right about everything he said, which is DC did an exhaustive coaching search. You did your research on this guy. You come back, and you're already frustrated from a club down point of view, because let's be real, right? The players didn't let Hernan Losada go. The club hierarchy did. The people above Losada are the ones who have this decision. They were the ones who employed him. And one of the things that I come away with in MLS is if you have a clear and coherent vision and you stick to it, you will be a playoff team, because there are other teams, in this scenario DC United, who do not have that clear and coherent plan, and you will end up above them. And I think the Red Bulls are the best example of that over the last 10 plus years with their playoff streak. And then obviously high end, what they were able to do with Supporter Shield. And to me, this is a glaring sign. There is not a clear top-down vision of what DC United is as a club. And so you brought in a coach who's very strongly believes in some things. And if that's not what you are, then why'd you bring him in? And if it is, why is he now gone? And I think for DC fans, that's what's scary, is for a club to be unmoored. That's a very scary moment. And especially at a time when we're seeing MLS clubs not just have visions and principles and styles and philosophies, but now doing it from MLS down through U12s. And you're looking at a club in DC where you can't answer any of those questions right now. And so they're in a dangerous spot as this league grows and evolves.
I would add
agree with you.
There's just no progress. You know, you've had a season under your belt, so you kind of experiences the highs and the lows and the big wins and figuring out who you want to build the team around. But then the team just did not progress. And if you lose half the locker room, forget it. You may lose a couple players who are on the fringes, who aren't playing, or maybe they're a little unhappy with rotation. But he lost half the locker room, and that was clear, if not more. And then you're
Minimum.
looking at, okay, how do you move forward from here? Chad Ashton, I had him with DC United. He's the rah guy. You know, he's been around for a long time. That works for a certain amount of time. But you have to have a long-term vision and plan for success. And so the next coach, whoever that may be, when they go out and they do the search once again, you have to look at the candidates. And ones that jump out to my right, speak to me right away is Hugo Perez of El Salvador. You look at the population of DC United and you think of RFK and La Barra Brava back in the day. There's 250,000 El Salvadorians in the DC area. If you count Maryland, Virginia, DC, that is a population ready to awake. And a coach could do that, especially one who's had a lot of success in CONCACAF with El Salvador. And then you have Luchi Gonzalez, who's out there, but I know he's rumored with San Jose. Same with Landon Donovan, San Jose. But that's one coach that stands out to me as being a realistic option for DC United and something that the fans would get behind.
And I think also, I'm going to read some quotes here, and I don't know when this drops. It might have been right now. The Athletic, I've never regretted subscribing to them. The reporting is always spot on. I believe it's Pablo, Paul Tenorio, and Sam Stachel reporting this. So this is according to a team source in attendance who was given, who's anonymous, granted that, by them to report it. Chad Ashton told DC's players, quote, "I want you to come in and enjoy it. The joy and happiness hasn't been there sometimes. With the strict eating all the weigh-ins, we forgot about having fun." Steve Birnbaum told reporters on Thursday, "Fans see 90 minutes of what we do, but we're in here as a group every day for hours and hours. We play a game of soccer. We started playing it to enjoy it. It's a big message that's being sent right now to enjoy our time together and enjoy training. We play our best when we're having fun." Steve Goff reported there was a clash over whether Steve Birnbaum was going to travel to Rochester for this Open Cup match against Flower City United. That the club was saying, hey, Steve shouldn't travel, and Hernan Losada is saying he should. I would go back to the hiring process, and correct me if I'm wrong here. I mean, how many hiring processes, how many teams are we covering at any given time? It does not seem like Hernan Losada was the first choice.
Nowhere.
I think they've been pretty open about the fact that he was late emergency choice.
Correct. He is not the first choice. So Hernan Losada comes in. Hernan Losada, it seemed like, tried to throw his weight around, maybe a little bit more than politically he had room to do so, whether it be in his mechanisms, whether it be in, his training, his demands of the players, his requests for players, etc. Think back to last year. think of all the players that were injured. We were sitting here on the show being like, hold on. Like, I get you have methods, but your methods, as you were sort of pointing out, Charlie, have to jive with what's logistically possible and what gets you results. This is a results-based business. So if your methods don't get results, you can only be tied to those for so long and keep your job. That's reality. Like, if you don't get the results and people around the club and within your team are saying, well, we don't like these and they're not working, and any business, any leader is going to have significant issues if all those things come together. So 1, he's not your first choice. 2, the methods aren't working. You missed the playoffs. 3, the results this year aren't there. 4, you're having players get injured. You're having players pushed to the absolute limits of their physical ability. And honestly, mentally and psychologically as well. Like, this isn't just a physical thing either. You got to have buy-in a different way. And then this is what you get. You get a change because he wasn't your first choice anyway. And at some point you got to cut bait. But I get what you're saying, Dave, as well, which is where's the vision? Now, they are saying they're going to keep his assistant, that the style of play to a certain degree they like and they want to get behind. So they are trying to keep some continuity to some degree there, at least through the rest of this year, because Chad Ashton, the assistant, I think Fostas maybe is his name. I don't know off the top of my head right now exactly. So they're trying to keep some continuity. They have made some investments in the transfer market. You know, Taxi Fontas coming in early, et cetera. We'll talk about Gareth Bale here in just a second. Michael Estrada coming in. But the talent, I mean, it feels to me like there's more that can be gotten from the talent, and that's where this next iteration of both the players and the coaches have something
I don't
to prove.
disagree what you guys are saying, and we talked about it on MLS Today with Charlie Boehm 2 days ago and Pablo Maurer today, so maybe I'm just living too deep in this, but they just missed the playoffs last year in his first year. Like, that was him coming in late, getting a team during COVID, shifting to his style, and they were the last team out. And so now it's year 2. He hasn't managed the DP that you brought in to play under him. So I think it's confusing, or I don't want us to cross wires with this week, Matias Almeida being let go, who was given the keys to the castle and didn't get the results. Like, Matias Almeida's fault was he asked for players and he didn't win with them. And I think that's fair to complain. I don't know that Losada was given that this year, and I don't know that it's fair for him to not be allowed to ask for those things. Now, is he asking for a level of spending that they have never done before, and they basically told him we wouldn't do when he came in, and he decided he could shift that after?
Difference?
Fair. But
isn't there a difference between asking publicly and privately?
Maybe, but your assumption would be he
I'm just saying in terms of
asking
decision makers
and didn't feel like he was getting what he wanted.
Well, but then again, that goes back to what I'm saying about like your political capital. If you're not the first choice guy and you don't have the locker room like lock, stock, and barrel, and you go public with that stuff, aren't you putting yourself on a little bit of an island?
Maybe, but I would argue
like if things start going bad, like it ain't gonna be the players that are gone.
I would argue though that out of this week, while Hernan Losada lost his job, the biggest spotlight is on Dave Casper and Lucy Rushton, who hired a coach a year ago that they just let go 6 games into a season to bring in the guy who was interim when they brought this guy in. You should have just kept Chad Ashton from the start.
Well,
and I get Pablo Maurer came on and said, well, it was a bit of a close connection to the Ben Olsen years. Well, the Ben Olsen years ended for a reason. And if we're going back to that, then again, lack of vision, lack of, as Charlie said, forward progress at a time when it feels like the rest of the league's changing. So, yeah.
On top of it, this is a brilliant fan base. The support, the city, everything. It's incredible. For me, I can't tell you how much that city means to me and the people in it, and how much they love the game, and they are diehard supporters. The majority have DC United tattoos. I mean, this is a committed fan base that deserves greatness, and they are getting far from it, which is really disheartening because I'll always be a fan of the club and especially the people that surround this club. And so from that viewpoint and from that, I think, perspective, this team is undervalued because you have a brand new stadium, which I won't even get into, but they have a brand new stadium, and you're not giving this fan base the keys to have success long term. I mean, if you talk about some of the signings that they've had, Well, Edison Flores, being an international, I think that's a miss.
Bust.
That's a huge miss.
It's been
Massive miss.
a bust.
Ola Kamara, who you invested in, bust. That's a bust.
I don't know if he's a bust, but you're trying to trade him, right? Like you go get Michael.
That's a bust for me in terms of the expectations. That's a bust.
Okay.
Julian Gressel, we know he's a quality player. You trade a lot to get him from Atlanta United, but hasn't been used the right way. So in I guess with his potential ability, that's a bust for me because he should be so much better if you surrounded him in the right way and you played him in the right position.
Had a great year last year.
I don't know that I agree with that one, but I would say bringing Gressel in while having
didn't progress more this year.
Well, I think bringing Gressel in with what you spent while having Areola already on the team in that spot didn't make a ton of sense. And again, was a lack of coherence and vision. I gotta say, Edson Flores was the right signing. The dude's good enough to play in MLS. What he did in Liga MX across what other people did, he's been hurt and it hasn't worked out. But it wasn't the wrong signing to make.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It just
I
hasn't
think
worked.
it was the wrong.
Can we rewind way back?
I think it was the wrong signing because they didn't play that style. So you can't bring in a player who doesn't fit the system. That's another layer of this whole thing. You have to bring in players who would be good fits. You don't bring in a player who's super technical, gets on the ball, dribbles if you're playing long ball. So what's the point of that? If it's a physical game and you're not keeping it, you can't have players who are good in possession. And that was the problem because they were playing a direct style, playing with wingers. You almost bypass the midfield. So if you had a 10, let's say if you had a Luciano Acosta, if you had some players who were of that quality, they're useless because you're not using them. You're not playing through them. So that is another part of the debacle that is DC United right now.
I think you can rewind this back a good ways too, right? And the phrase that's coming to mind for me is sort of Band-Aids. Like, you're just sort of kind of covering wounds and trying to like survive and get forward and improve this little bit. And, whether it was and this is no disrespect to Benny, but he was a Band-Aid at the time, right? Like he was okay, well, what are we going to do? Okay, Ben, you're like a longtime servant. Fan base loves you. You get DC. Like, come on, man. Like, you don't have a ton of experience. We're going to throw you into the fire. And then we're going to keep you there for a decade. And the results are going to be up and down. And when they're up, it's going to be that sort of like old school, early 2010s MLS approach of ton of veterans, like pick up guys from other teams that aren't wanted there, but we can get the best out of them. Like Fabian Espindola, okay, you're in. Like, all right, we're making the playoffs that way. We're even up at the top of the conference sometimes that way. Okay, well, that's not sustainable. It's not long-term. There's not really a style of play like involved that we can recruit against. Okay, we're going down. All right, we get Wayne Rooney. We got, we signed Lucho, and okay, he's turned into a really good player here. And now we add Rooney, and now we have this like Lucharu like year and a half of magic, but that's not sustainable because that's not long term. And okay, now we're back here, and okay, we got a new coach, but he's not our first choice. We weren't able to get our first choice coach. Okay, Band-Aid again. Like I agree with you on all those fronts, Dave. Like, I don't know where you lay all the blame for that, whether it's from the very, very top, like, okay, well, what's the mandate from ownership? Okay, well, how does the front office execute on that mandate? And then how does it trickle down to the playing staff and the coaches? Like, it just, there isn't, where's that vision, like you're saying? And with 28 teams in this league, I don't know that we're at a point anymore where you can Band-Aid your way through and be successful. Like when so many others, there are still others Band-Aiding out there, by the way. There's a lot of wounds that are getting covered up. Don't get that twisted.
The Band-Aid.
Charlie's got his first aid kit over his shoulder, ready to go.
Yeah. There's some walking wounded around. But there are also a lot of teams now, and when you go to 28, that they got their plans together. They're executing against that plan, and they may have some down years, but they have sort of a North Star that they're following against. So that's the challenge for DC now, right, is to find that North Star. Is to figure out what that is.
And I think
what are they?
What
do they stand for?
Yeah, 100%. And it has to be more than a coach because that's how you get continuity, right? Coach comes in, coach comes out, but if you have that continuity from above, and whether it's playing style or just culture of a club, because style fits that. Like, I don't want people to think we just say style because we have to pick how your players play. Like, style, as we've heard from Jesse Morse on this show, as you'll hear from Bob Bradley, as you'll hear from Porg Smith and Robin Fraser and all these people, style is an ethos of who we are, how we see the sport because of how we see the world. But I do think, and I'm worried a little, that as you start to talk about who's eligible out there, and I thought all the names Charlie said were spot on, and Hugo Perez, who's a guy who, again, sees the game in a way where it's more than just a sport, and his players at El Salvador connected with it and did things an El Salvador team has never done, whether the results were there or not because of the resources. I think Landon's a person who obviously feels that.
I just want to add this too with Hugo Perez. He's developed U.S. men's national team stars. He found Christian Pulisic. He brought him to the national team. Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie. He's coached young talent. That is invaluable when you're talking about DC United's talent pool, because the Mid-Atlantic region's always producing ballers. You need to have someone who can see that, bring that talent in, cultivate it, and then put it forward so that your fan base can support local homegrown talent. That's one way of him having success, but also developing the players that you already have. I mean, look what he did for Alex Roldan. He brought him to a whole nother level. He empowered him. He gave him, the confidence. He's been a utility player in CONCACAF and has succeeded. I mean, for me, it's almost a no-brainer in terms of the experience. He's a National Soccer Hall of Famer. He's coached boys and girls youth club teams in this country. He's coached youth national teams in this country. He's been an assistant coach in Major League Soccer, and he's coached internationally in CONCACAF and a well-respected team in El Salvador. Yeah, they didn't qualify for the World Cup, but they were a tough team to play against. Look at how the United States fared against them in 2 matches. So you're right, Gus, and you can keep going with your list.
No, I was going to say all those things, but my worry is all of those names, Luchi Gonzalez, and then I think as you go down the list, you should start talking about young coaches who, let's be real, how desirable is this DC job right now? I think your best bet to get value is a Pam Oduka, a Dave Vandenberg, a Jason Bent, a coach who has maybe head coaching experience at a lower level. Huh? Shalry Joseph. I think all those guys who they're looking for their first chance, so they'll take the risk with you. Mm-hmm. But my worry is all of those, you need to give them a runway. It's not going to work in 4 months. Yeah. And you didn't do that with Losada, so can you...
Or 40 games.
Exactly. So can you do that with the next person? But it'll be interesting to see how it goes along.
Yeah, you got to have some... I mean, you have to have some like level of seeing eye to eye. And that goes through all the different aspects of the club, and that's where we go back to vision. Like, it can't be the vision of one part but not the others.
Ownership, to sporting director.
You got to have some agreement here. And commitment through good times and bad times, and that goes done through the squad to then support a coach in a situation like this. And again, I go back to the realities of these jobs. Like, there is a very political reality of any job as a leader.
There's no political. It's not.
Like, that might be the basis of that might be the basis of being a leader. Like the strategy, the execution, all that follows along. But you got to have people that believe in you. You got to have people that want to bend over backwards for you. You got to have people that see what you see and want to pursue that. And that seemed like that reservoir dried up pretty quick for Hernan Losada. 40 games, not a long time.
Can I ask?
That's
in
it
danger of taking the show off the rails and getting in trouble. Who are you more excited to watch this year? DC United or San Jose?
San Jose.
Ooh.
Charlie?
That's a tough one. If I'm going to be honest right now, I think San Jose has a little bit more upside in terms of potential, because you're throwing in Cade Cowell, you're throwing in Abobasi. I just feel like if they have the right coach, I think you're going to get more from that San Jose team and seeing where they could finish at the end of the year, as opposed to this current DC United team, which I think there's just a lot of kind of pieces that don't necessarily fit together. And I think the puzzle is a little bit tougher to put together with DC United than it is for the San Jose Earthquakes.
I love that the kicker on this is that Charlie's going to broadcast DC United this weekend for the Rats.
Woo! Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, the kicker is, let's see, what's the game for them? Oh, yeah, DC hosting New England on MLS live on ESPN Plus, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. I say San Jose because I think there's going to be more of a noticeable difference in the way that they go about playing the game. So that's why I'm more interested in seeing it. We've seen the Matias Almeida way for a long time with this group. I want to see what it looks like when somebody else comes in with new ideas. Nicholas Frutos is the assistant coach for DC that's going to stick around. Apparently, he was absolutely integral into the whole plan for Andy Najar to resurrect his career.
And that's a big one.
So it's not that I don't think that DC have talent. Like, I think they should probably be in the same general bucket as San Jose that we've been talking about, which is good enough to compete for a playoff spot. There honestly, there are not that many teams in this league that you look at and say, no chance. And that's the beauty of MLS. Is that you really have to you gotta have some like amputations walking wounded style to not be able to at least sniff it in this league. I think DC could, and Julian Gressel said on the podcast that within that locker room they believe that as well. So now it's their opportunity to prove that, to go out and show that if indeed when you enjoy the game, when you have a little bit less pressure on you day to day on things like how much you weigh, or what your body fat percentage is, or how many miles at intensity of what you ran, you can focus a little bit more on soccer and results side. We'll see if that holds true. But I would encourage you to go check out this story from Pablo and Paul and Sam that I've been reading through here.
And just to mention, San Jose hosting Seattle on Unimas, 10 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. That's the perfect game where Seattle has to look towards CCL first leg down in Mexico. So for San Jose, they could come off Open Cup 5-0 win under new coach, new breath in the atmosphere, right? Like you can feel more relaxed now that the Almeida time. And again, everyone said they enjoyed playing for him, but life just becomes that easier once this moment happens. Now they go into a game against Seattle where Seattle will probably have eyes on something else. Can you keep a Bobasi going? Buddha got the start in Open Cup. Can you keep that going for him? Him and Cowell, I mentioned it in the preview of the season. Like those three up front should be unbelievable in the open field. Threats 1v1. Can you put them on the field now for the first time? Can you protect Jackson Ewell the way he should be protected in midfield and let him do what he does best? Can you do the same with Jamiro Montero as well? These pieces fit together to be a decent team. Now, hopefully, that's the situations they'll be put in, and it could be really fun to watch. And this is the perfect start to that new era against a team that you'll be up for because it's Seattle and they are a big name, but may not be as focused on your matchup.
So we've talked through the DC coaching situation. We've left this little nugget for the end of the conversation. Stephen Goff at Soccer Insider. DC United in talks with Gareth Bale's reps about a move to MLS, I'm told. They've actually spoke months ago, I should say, Goff says, but it didn't go anywhere. Sides are exchanging proposals, but unclear whether it will pick up speed. DC are prepared to pay more than they paid Wayne Rooney in 2018. Bale, obviously, we all know, leaving Real Madrid. How excited would you be? And yes, you could file this one under Band-Aid as well, probably. But, the flip side of this Band-Aid is Hercules Gomez tweets here. I get the bad golf takes about Bale, etc., low-hanging fruit, but let's not act like he wouldn't be the best player in MLS today. Huge talent. The talent we know is there. Whether or not he would actually be that in MLS is a question that would have to be answered. How jacked would you get for this, Charlie? Gareth Bale to DC United.
I wouldn't be that jacked, to be honest. Yes,
really?
Because
zero level.
No, I would like to see him in Major League Soccer. I would like to see Gareth Bale, and I think it makes sense for him because if you especially you could talk to Wayne Rooney about going out golfing because there are a number of golf courses in that DC area, which.
But if that's the sell,
no, but
I'm down.
Literally,
but
I think for him, mental health comes first. And I think he's talked about, the pressure of the media being so negative, and golf is kind of like his thing to go out and enjoy it and kind of keep him healthy mentally. That's probably going to play a part in this is just my free time, what I'm going to be able to do with my family, how am I going to enjoy life. Most players, when they come from Europe to Major League Soccer, that's one thing that stands out to them is I love my time here outside of one. I love playing and training, but I love what I'm able to do with my free time because you don't get that luxury in Europe. For the most part, fans are all over you, whether your team's doing really well and everyone's looking for pictures or autographs or harassing you, or your team's really low, doing poor, and people are criticizing you left and right.
Can't even go to the butcher shop. Couldn't even go get
It's really difficult.
a strip steak.
To come here and all of a sudden you can be yourself. You can go enjoy walking around the city, going to get coffee, playing with your kids, going golfing. The requirements of being a professional soccer player are much different here than they are there. That's just that's just being real. And I think for Gareth Bale, that's what is, I think, really appealing for him, is to come to the United States and kind of be a normal guy. Yeah, play soccer and try and help DC win some trophies. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be happier with my life, with my family, being in that DC area, and it will be a great fit. And if you have a happy, healthy Gareth Bale, that's gonna be incredible for DC United on the pitch.
If he's hitting flighted baby draw 7 irons into that
yeah.
into the 8th hole at Congressional, he's just gonna be in heaven. Dave, I see you rolling your eyes here. How good would Gareth Bale be in MLS in your opinion? He is on the brink of perhaps playing in a World Cup.
I think he'd be the best player in the
league. He's still one of the best players in the world.
I think he'd be the best player in the league, and I think he is physically a top 5 or 10 player in the world, and he's not doing it week in and week out. But then he steps on the field for Wales, as you said, in World Cup qualifying, and he does it, or he did it in the Euros as well. He's elite on set pieces, so even if, how does he fit in? What's your system? What's your style? He still probably brings up your goal scoring a ton just from shooting and crossing opportunities. 1v1, he's a demon.
He's going to play
player.
centrally for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, striker, right?
I would think
he would be playing with
at the very least, he's a 10 or a withdrawn striker at the very least.
And I don't think I don't know that. I think you build a system to protect him and have him find the game and do what he wants, right? It's similar to Zelarayan. It's not, this is how you fit in and what we do to press. It's Russell Canals and someone out there just doing all the work behind him and letting Gareth Bale play. But I do think he's elite. I do think if I was ever going to be someone who signed him, it would be now going into the World Cup, where he clearly cares about his form with Wales. If they qualify, then you get a good half season out of him. And then you sort of bite the bullet and deal with it afterwards if the form does drop off, if his interest does drop off. But I think Charlie's right. The things that bother him wouldn't really exist here. And he would have ownership of the team, right? It'd be on his shoulders like it is with Wales. You're the star. You're the face of it. And I think that changes his atmosphere and his perception. I think he will be worth whatever it costs. And I think he's available. And that's not the case with every player of his level. And therefore, for whatever MLS team is in the conversation, I think it's worth making the move.
Pablo Maurer reported that DC United do have his discovery rights. And something I was thinking as we were talking through this Gareth Bale situation, I agree with everything that you guys have said. Like, between the lifestyle, between the soccer side of his ability, and the need for DC, there'd be a fit there. It would be good for DC, even if a Band-Aid. Sometimes you need something to get you onto that next year. It's not going to be like they're going to snap their fingers and be like, oh, we got the vision. The entire club is united behind it. Like, you've got to have a transition period to get there. But one thing that I know that Gareth Bale would not have been down for is playing for Hernan Losada under the conditions that are being reported right now that the players were playing under with Hernan Losada. That I just don't think would have been a realistic scenario for DC United. So, yeah, there a clash of personalities at the club. Big change. Manager is out. Chet Ashton in to be the interim. Nicholas Frutos stays. Apparently the players all really, really like him, and he's been an awesome presence for them. So that's good news, at least to keep a little continuity with their ideas on the field. It does feel like there are some mismatched pieces on the roster. I mean, we've heard for months that Ola Kamara is on the block, and he's still on the team. Taxi Fontes is going to come in. What are they going to do now with that? They got 2 wingbacks that are strictly wingbacks. Do you have to stick with the wingback system, or can it change? We're going to find out all those things. If you have any thoughts, DC fans, hit us up, 401-206-0MLS, extratime@mlssoccer.com. Yeah, that's it. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Actually, one quick thing from that game against the Revs, Charlie. I just want to get your thoughts on this. Dylan Barrero The Brazilian, Jeff Carlisle, saying that he can confirm that the Revs have a signed agreement for the winger of transfer fee of about $4 million that it could increase by $500,000 if certain incentives are met. It's an Atletico Mineiro player, and they hold 20% of any future sale. He's 20. Seems like a sort of a Tejan replacement. What have you? What if anything have you heard?
Again, because I mean it's clear as day that the U.S. men's national team, the New England Revolution are missing a dynamic attacking player that is looking to attack, and someone who can do it on the ball and off the ball. But that threat, and so you bring in Sebastian Lletget, and he's a different type of player. Yes, he has quality, but he's not going to make up for what you lose in Tejan Buchanan. So I think this is the player that's brought in to give you another weapon in midfield on the wings, and someone who can beat you 1v1 on the dribble, who can combine, and now I think you're a little bit more dangerous with Adam Buxa, Gustavo Bo, and Josie Altidore as the forwards.
All right, some work to do for New England. It's been a rough start to the season for them. We know where DC's at. They get a home game. That's got to be good news for them as they try to turn things around and enjoy the game and see if the results might follow. Good luck to DC. Sounds like they've been in a little bit of an emotional ringer for a while now, and maybe there's some release and some joy that can come from it for them. And good luck to Hernan Losada. I will say that we always had great conversations with him, and it seems like a tough situation for Hernan and maybe a learning situation for him. So I hope he lands on his feet as well. Let's talk LAFC. We have got a national TV game in Cincinnati this weekend on Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern, FS1, Cincinnati hosting LAFC. And the reporting from Doug McIntyre and then Tom Bogert is that Carlos Vela and LAFC have agreed to a contract extension. Quote, "It's as good as done," said Doug's source on this one. He'll continue as a DP, no surprise there. And Tom is saying the deal is at least through 2023, so at least a year and a half. Carlos is 33 now. We've talked about this over and over and over, Dave. We don't have to relitigate any of that. But I do wonder, and Zach Brown wonders, he hit us up. He says, LAFC flying high with Vela on board and Rossi gone. What position do they need to target this summer to get even better? They have that open DP spot. Where would you use an open DP spot if you're LAFC? Alicia Rodriguez on Power Rankings came on and said it's going to be attacking piece. That's what her reporting indicates. She couldn't speak yet exactly to position. What position would you lean toward? I
still would cover myself, and I think this is a dream contract, by the way, for LAFC, if it is that year and a half. I'd still cover myself and say it's a winger and maybe someone who can slide into the number 10 position, in place of Cifuentes if everyone's healthy. But for me to win MLS Cup this year, I still think if you can take away your reliance on Vela's health and the need for Brian Rodriguez to perform at a high level, you just make it safer, and you're already the first place team in the league, the first place team in the Western Conference. So I just think that still makes sense. You don't need a center forward. You have Arango. You have pieces that work hard for you at that position off the bench.
Say his name, Danny Musovski.
UNLV, baby. You also have Cifuentes, who I think is borderline elite at that attacking midfield spot, and then Blessing and Acosta and all these other pieces that you can kind of rotate through around him in midfield. So they're loaded at center back. They made the move at goalkeeper. I still think you bring in a player who maybe it slides Vela inside, maybe it slides Rodriguez inside, maybe that player slides inside when all three are healthy, but that still seems to make the most sense to me.
Charlie, what do you think?
I'm probably going to go with an attacking 10. A game changer, someone who can score goals, like a Lucas Zelarayan in that mold, someone who could maybe a Carlos Heel, someone who can dictate the tempo, who you can play through, which relieves pressure for Carlos Vela, which would relieve pressure for Brian Rodriguez and Arango. So, and then you still have Opoku coming in off the bench. You still have, Danny Mazovsky. Tajuri Shradi, who I think is
scoring goals. Yep.
Probably one of the most undervalued players in the league. So yeah, that would be kind of, unless you went out and you got just an incredible striker that just became available, then I think that's where you would go.
Yeah, short of Lewandowski, I wouldn't make that move. But he is a free agent.
No,
don't do it to him.
He wants a lot of money. He wants a lot of money. Okay, let's talk weekend preview a little bit more here. Go through some national TV games. Make sure MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app, your best spot to get all the scheduling, all the TV information, highlights, etc., stats. Saturday, Dallas, Houston, Copa de Tejas, Univision, Turiene, Twitter, in English, 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. This is one of the better Texas Derby. Are we still doing Texas Derby, or is it all Copa de Tejas? I think
it was
Copa
never
de Tejas.
Texas Derby. It was El
Yes.
Capitan. This is El Capitan.
It was El Capitan.
It's both.
Is it?
El Capitan is under. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Got you.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Double
genus
jeopoody.
versus. I don't know the other scientific stuff for
Yeah, you needed the other one.
Yeah.
You needed below. I don't have the other one either. So look, we haven't been in biology for a minute these days. But both teams on 5-game unbeaten runs. That's pretty incredible for Dynamo. Talk to Glenn Davis on that Power Ranking show. Again, go subscribe or go listen to those shows on MLS Today podcast feed. Dave does a great job every single day during the week. And then we got the Power Rankings and MLS After Dark as well. And Charlie and I have been enjoying that on Sundays, including the That's Whack segment. No longer is Texas whack. It's not so bad to talk about Tejas these days. But Glenn Davis said there's still a lot of room to improve for the Dynamo. And I think the same thing is for Dallas as well. Where are you feeling juice about this one, Dave? Give me a little wago, as you said early in the
Well,
in the
just
show.
the fact that it's competitive, I think, is exciting. And then my understanding is Houston has Austin next game or next week. So, like, all of this mattering for playoff runs and it not being who has the most ties that wins this thing, I think that's where all the energy comes from, and tapping into one of the great soccer markets in the country, both from a talent point of view and from a fan base point of view. And so you look at an FC Dallas team loaded with homegrowns. It feels like it's coming for Austin and Houston. That's what gives me energy. And 3 young managers that are finding their feet and to do it against each other. And they all have different styles. They all see the game in different ways. I think it'll be fun to, this starts to set the stage, right? For Paulo Nagamura, maybe he's the most different of the other 2 who are from the Greg Berhalter school a bit. But like, this now starts to show, how does he handle these matchups? How does he handle this possession style that he's going to face against with 2 teams in Texas for hopefully years and years to come? So I think to start to see that play out is going to be pretty exciting here. And I'll watch that Dallas midfield 3 when they're healthy any day of the week. Like any field, anywhere in the world, if you put those 3 on the field, then I'm tuning in.
I mean, it's not just the midfield 3 for Dallas either. It's the front 3. If you're a U.S. national team fan, you got Jesus Ferreira and you got Paul Arriola. If you are I don't know if they exist. I guess if you listen to Extra Time, you could be like a U22 initiative fan. Alan Velasco is a huge prospect. Ton of money spent on him. He's still easing his way in. And on the flip side for Houston, like, it kind of feels like Paulo Nagamura is like, he's squeezing the orange, so to speak. He's getting the most juice he can out of it right now. And can he get more from those wingers? That's a big question mark. Can he keep Darwin Quintero fit, healthy, engaged, productive? He says he's not concerned about the lack of scoring. At least that's what Anders just put in the chat. But come on, he's got to be. You got to keep getting that production. You're going to be in trouble. So it should be a great match. I did see a Paulo Nagamura quote about sort of the rivalry aspect and how jacked up he is for that. He's a passionate guy. I want to see passion back in this, and passion comes from when either team could jump the other in the standings, and there are clear bragging rights. By the way, Houston is hosting Austin next week. They're on the road at this point. We mentioned the San Jose-Seattle game on Saturday, Unimas Turien. This is a pretty obvious one. Jeremy Abobasi on fire. The new coaching staff went and got a 5-0 win against Bay City in Open Cup. Can they keep some semblance of the new coach bounce rolling? Can the post-Matias Almeida era continue to continue? They have one result. Yeah. Can it portend another result? And what does it look like in MLS play? What is the style of play for San Jose? That's an easy sell. How about Sunday on ESPN, 1 p.m. Eastern, Inter Miami, Atlanta, Charlie? Quietly, Inter Miami have won 3 straight games in all competitions.
They have.
What they have. That's factual.
Absolutely
that has happened. How would you manage the Gonzalo Higuain situation if you were Phil Neville? He went from demanding more to then getting results and goals from Leo Campana to then, after winning on the weekend, saying, basically like extending the olive branch back to Gonzalo and saying, we need him, we got to have, et cetera, et cetera. How would you manage this situation if you were Phil Neville?
It's pretty easy. I mean, Leo Campana has to play. He's earned it. the team respects him. He works hard for the team, whether he's scoring or he's holding up the ball and creating. He has to play. So in that instance, you say to Campana, I'm going to continue to ride the hot hand, and Higuain, we're going to need you. I need you to believe in me and trust in me, but you've been in this game for a long time. You understand how it works. When you're out and someone comes in and takes their opportunity, you have to wait your chance. As soon as Leo Campana's form drops off, that's when Gonzalo gets back on the field. Unless you change your whole formation and you play with 2 strikers and you play Campana up there with Higuain, and obviously Campana is going to be the player who's doing all the work and the work rate's going to show, but you want a response from Gonzalo Higuain, and a positive one that he's working for the team all of a sudden, and he's super positive. He's not throwing up his hands. He's encouraging players. That's what you need from him, and you had to have had those conversations before he comes back in the team. I would assume that those conversations happened, and you're going to see a different type of Gonzalo Higuain when he comes back into the fold. Otherwise, it's not going to be good to have him on the sideline, or you're playing him over Campana, and everyone else on the sideline is like, man, he played so well for us. He worked hard, and all of a sudden we're not getting results.
Yeah, the vibes were better. Yeah. Well, the vibes are decent now. We'll see if they can keep them rolling. Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern, Miami, Atlanta United. How about 3:30 p.m. Eastern, a doubleheader on ESPN on Sunday? Orlando City Red Bulls, Dave. Red Bulls unbeaten on the road, but not that great at home as far as wins go. Pato doing what a certain host on this show just always expected him to do. Just knew that he had inside of him. Did you watch the Tampa Bay Rowdies game the other night? He was playing that basically like a 10 and just dishing, just controlling the game, just creating chances out of nothing.
You think Pato should be in the running for best 11 at the USL Eastern Conference?
I think Pato. I'm doing a column after this where I pick the 11 I think Adrian Heath will choose or should choose, probably will choose, try to be predictive on it for the All-Star game in Minnesota. If Pato's not in that 11, we riot.
He feels like a Heath player.
We burn it all down.
Just play center forwards at every
position.
Burn it
all down. Exactly. It's not actually true. I'm not going to put him in, but in my heart, I will. We have a question from Tim Katz about Patrick Klimala. Darling of advanced stats, scourge of Red Bulls fans. Is he really unlucky, or is he really bad at finishing? Is he a victim of Struber's system? All of the above. Looks like he couldn't buy a goal for $1 million right now. What is your take on this match? And if you have a take on Klimala,
I think on Klimala, it's a combination of the first two things. I don't think he's an elite finisher. I don't think that's his best skill set, but his ability to create for others and find chances is up there. And so over the course of the season, he's going to score the goals they need him to score. And I think, as Charlie's told us a million times, confidence, belief, all those things for a center forward, a young center forward with a ton of pressure, first time starting a season here in MLS and leading the line. I think all of that's catching up to him. But my belief, if I was part of the Red Bulls, would be that as long as he keeps getting the chances over the course of the season, the numbers will be there and they'll be fine. So that's my take on him. And then you take it into Orlando City, and Orlando sort of has this decision to make of how do they control games now without Carlos. And you saw the possession that they had in the last game. And I think Kara adds to that, like they've not had a center forward do, with the ability to play off him and link up with the wingers and Pereira, where, okay, can you start to control games that way without having to open it up and press as much? And does that help you then protect the back line? So it'll be interesting against a Red Bull team that obviously loves for you to do that so that they can press you into mistakes in transition, how it works for Orlando. But I feel most confident now than I have over the last 3 weeks that the roadmap going forward for Orlando City makes sense.
All right, let's get to ESPN Plus games of the weekend and roll through these real quick. I'm going to throw mine out there. I think it's pretty obvious. I'm a Chicharito Galaxy guy. I got the shrine over there just burning bright. Galaxy, Nashville. So Nashville have 11 points so far through 7 games. I'd have to check. Let me just make sure. I believe is this their last one on the road?
Yeah, they open up May 1st.
Yeah, this is it. So this is the final road game. This is it. Nashville got 3 more points already than they expected. Now they're going to get to the Galaxy and try to get 3 more. We'll see if they can do it. Always worth watching Chicharito and Hani and everybody else. So that's an easy game to get on board for. Charlie, what's your ESPN Plus game?
It's bad versus bad. It's going to be Sporting Kansas City hosting Columbus Crew. So, both coming in with 3 straight losses. You look at Sporting Kansas City, and yes, the 9 has always been the issue. Once Alan Polito said, I'm going to be out the whole year, even though he may say I'm going to be coming back this year. But it's also the midfield. Roger Espinoza and Remy Voltaire. I think it hasn't been as sharp, and they haven't covered the ground that I think is necessary for them to be successful with Johnny Russell, and I think there's a lot of things that need to be worked out with this team.
Peter sort of challenged certainly the defensive side of his team this last week, and said, I'm going to summarize this quote: "The defending doesn't require a ton of talent; it requires a lot of effort, and he isn't feeling like his team is putting in that effort." And I think if you've watched some of the goals and some of the transition moments that this team has given up and paid for some of them and not paid for all of them, you will see some of what he's talking about. And now it's on Peter and that squad to find a solution,
right, so,
and to find a vein of motivation and just to get after somebody.
That comes to, is the team motivated, right? Is the coach motivating this team? Peter's been there for a long time. And some of those players have been there for a long time. So that dynamic, it sometimes goes stale. So trying to get that back, maybe it's bringing in new players, maybe it's trading some players, whatever that may be. It seems to me that they have lost a little bit of that fire and passion. So they need to get it back. And then 2, you look at the Columbus Crew. 2 years ago, they were MLS Cup champs. We were talking about their depth and their midfield and Aiden Morris and looking about.
What was your prediction last year?
I said that they were the best returning MLS Cup roster ever.
Oh my gosh, exactly. And where are we today? They failed to make the playoffs last year, and this year, it looks worse. And Jossie Zardes and Miguel Berry up top. That whole debate. What are you going to do? Who's going to play? Well, you had a chip in Jossie Zardes. A nice blue chip. If he's not going to be your guy, which clearly to me it seems to me he's not, then move him and get value right off the bat. Now his value has dropped considerably because he was in the national team. He was considered a possible starter in the rotation. I think he played his way out pretty quickly. And he's struggled in Major League Soccer. So now the value, what you'd get back for him out of trade at this point, is not great. Miguel Berry, if you trade him, you're not going to get anywhere near the value you would have had with Jossie Zardes. And then I think defensively, you talked about with Peter, the commitment to defending and transition, that's been poor. Your coach not showing up for a press conference talking about the team. We've seen it before from Caleb Porter. So it's either the team responds and gets back, because it's not about missing players. You have Lucas Zelarayan, who's incredible, who's a game changer in this league. You've had Nagby. You have Arthur. These players have been in your midfield before. So it's not that you're missing anybody. You have the players. This is all about motivation and getting your team going and playing a tactically sound game. For me, this is not a player issue. This is a manager issue. So in both cases, they got to get going.
8 of their next 12. I just counted it up for the Crew on the road. That's a tough slate to sort of resurrect yourself a little bit out of. They're still right below the playoff line, but that's rough. All right, Dave, what's yours?
I'm going to go less negative and say Philly, Montreal, who are Philly are the best team in Major League Soccer. Flat,
very good versus
and
pretty
Montreal,
good.
4 straight wins. They found their feet. They talked about it, but just coming out of CCL, they've started being able as a group to work together. They're starting to get some people healthy in the attack. So I think it's a fascinating one as well. How does Georgie now we're far enough in that he's being put in MVP conversations? How does he handle Jose Martinez tracking him? Can he go pick up that space on the left side? Go up against a Nathan Harriel? Is Alejandro Bedoya sort of tracking him into that space? So I just think it'll be interesting to watch all of those pieces together, and Philly are the best team in Major League Soccer. So you got to turn on every time they're playing.
Union. Listen to that. Mikel Ura, we want to see if he can score some goals. We want to see
the
what
goal
Franz
that
has
he
got.
did
We've
set up
talked about
against Toronto was gorgeous. So
Yeah, and look, Union fans are going to point to that red card. By the way, had a suspension there for Jaden Nelson. So
I still
that
say
was
let the
corrected on
lads
back
play,
end.
but you know.
Well, come on,
Don't ask
lads. No, but you see that on a Sunday afternoon. No biggie. Pub leagues, it allowed that. Mailbag 401-206-0MLS, extratime@MLSsoccer.com. We have some news here. National team to host, U.S. national team to host Morocco on June 1st in Cincinnati, going back to Ohio. And Gaga Slonina, maybe I think we have an email about some of the goalkeeping stuff, but Gaga Slonina pictured with a customized Poland jersey,
boy.
Charlie. The head coach rolled out to
I
Chicago.
saw him here in New England too last week.
Oh,
Did you?
He was.
Wow, he's
he was
making the
here-
rounds. The
he
hard
was here
push.
for the big Polish matchup.
wow.
Hard for Buksa. Yeah, okay. He's checking with his boys. What do we? Do you have any level of concern here about the recruitment of Gaga Slonina?
Yes, you'd have to be concerned because this is a rising talent, right? In terms of what he's been able to do and accomplish at such a young age. The clean sheets, but he just carries himself like we've had him here. He carries himself like a real, mature, grown man. And this is a 17-year-old kid who's performing at a super high level in Major League Soccer. He's got the world's attention. They talked about Chelsea was interested in bringing him over, right? The kid's got it. He's got talent. And I was so impressed when I saw him last year playing against the New England Revolution, how he moved his feet, how he was able to anticipate shots, how he was able to, not give up rebounds. He was very secure. You never felt any type of panic with him. He was always under control. So, yes, it is a concern. And I thought he deserved to call up for the Mexico trip just because there was some concerns with injuries. Matt Turner was out. Zach Steffen was kind of iffy. And so I know people were talking about giving him a start in Mexico because he was playing so well. But he didn't even get the call up. So if you're a young player, he talked about it on here, you want the opportunity. Where's the opportunity for me in the future? What does it look like? And if you're in the Poland camp, there's probably not too many other keepers who are on your level as far as the trajectory and who's playing in front of you. Whereas we look at the U.S. men's national team, I have a keeper at Manchester City who is like the coach's first choice because they've had so much history together. You have another keeper who's going to Arsenal, both pretty young in terms of goalkeeper ages. Where's if you're looking at long term, where is probably the best fit for me? And if the national team coach is coming all the way over to recruit me, and there's a World Cup this summer, and he's probably dangling that carrot like we did for Julian with Klinsmann and bringing Julian blanking on his last
Green.
name. Julian Green.
The future of soccer.
Right? So
yeah, the greatest player in the world.
It sounds pretty similar to me in terms of that, recruiting a young talent that's playing at a high level, and you're dangling a World Cup spot in front of them.
So I'm not an expert in Polish soccer, and I can't pronounce Polish names, so I won't try. They've got a 22-year-old keeper at Fiorentina who's got 7 starts this year and a 21-year-old keeper at Monaco. So, yes, Szczesny's 32. Maybe this is his last go-around, although I'd be surprised if he's still starting, that he doesn't hang on for the next Euros.
Yeah, why wouldn't he?
To hang on for the next Euros, if not past that. So I don't think it's an obvious he's the starter at either of them, or I don't think it's an obvious this is an easy path for you. I think you start talking about, where his heart lies and what he's passionate about and all of those things. You just can't decide for someone. And I think Berhalter's made the point in the past, go experience other atmospheres and see how you feel. Gaga Slonina did not deserve to play for the U.S. in this previous window. And so I'm fine that he didn't. And if that's the reason that he does choose to leave because he gets called up for Poland, which I don't think he's there yet to be a starter at a World Cup, then it is what it is.
It's not starting, but it's more of in the future, what is the best path for me? Where am I going to get the opportunity? And if you're looking at the two, Poland is the better chance for him to succeed and play.
I don't know that that's true. It could be, but I don't know that that's 100% true.
Oh, I think so.
I will also say that Berhalter has been, as you said, Dave, happy to let guys experience more and secure in the fact that he's doing his work, whether it's out in the open. It's not like he's rolling up to Soldier Field with customized jerseys like he had the dude in camp. Like, there's a clear relationship there. Happy to do his work on the background and say, here's what the deal is. If you want to be a part of it, we'd love to have you. And it's worked in a lot of cases, a lot of high-profile cases. I hope it works this time. Gago Slonina is a generational talent at goalkeeper. I think that's pretty clear. The people that know are not afraid to say that publicly, and the conversation that we had with him was mind-blowing, just on the maturity side. And that maturity is not, that helps your growth curve, right? We'll see. I did think there was an interesting story on MLSsoccer.com. They talked to like Brad Friedel, Casey Keller, and Tony Miola. And Miola said for the first time in a long time I can remember, goalkeeper is a position of concern. Quote, we're not even close right now to a Brad Friedel, a Casey Keller, or a Tim Howard. We're not close right now to that. So, look, if Gago Slonina progresses like people think he can progress, there's no reason why he can't be that guy. And if he's truly confident in himself, as he surely is, there's no reason why he can't say to himself, I'm going to be they're at Man City. Yeah, they're at Arsenal. They're not starters. I'm going to be that guy.
I mean,
that's my future.
He was going to go to Chelsea.
Path, and I'm gonna blaze it. Yeah, he was. So we'll see what happens with Gago Slonina. What do we have in here that interests you?
We have Matt in Milwaukee. He says, hello, gentle people. This was from a couple days ago, but I'm pulling it back anyway. He said, after last weekend's SKC Nashville game and Vancouver Portland games, given what I know about Team USA, how they want to play, and what I saw in those two games, I'm curious what Team Extra Time thinks about Brian White and Joe Willis as depth pieces for Team USA squad. I was intrigued by their ball distribution abilities, Willis in supporting the build-up, White in combining with other attackers. Maybe they're worth a look this summer, as you mentioned, the friendly against Morocco. I brought this question up in the rundown meeting, and you guys came after me.
No, whoa. Time out. You said
fine.
It's not a we situation. Fair. Charlie.
No, you did too, and Anders 1,000% did. Anders maybe as much. So all of you rolled your eyes at this, right? Charlie, is that fair? What'd you say about Joe Willis being a national team?
I did. I did. I didn't learn from it. I got my hand up. I would say, that's
nice. I think
don't agree with that.
Okay, you don't want Joe Willis in the national team specifically, fair. But at this point,
well, it's not about not wanting. Yeah. It's just about thinking in a depth chart situation that it's
this point, with Raguzan out for the year, with Zach Steffen not a starter and Matt Turner not a starter, and potentially Gaga Slonina deciding he's not a USA player, he's Polish. What is your depth chart at some point? At some point, we have to acknowledge that there are strong keepers in MLS who can't do all the things Greg Berhalter wants, but can keep the ball to the back of the net. And you have to get back to the basics on that if that's what you're looking for. And if a Matt Turner or Zach Steffen is injured going into a World Cup, what's your depth chart right now? Ethan Horvath and Sean Johnson, and that's it, right?
I'll tell you this. If you know the head coach of the U.S. men's national team plays a certain way, Joe Willis does not have the feet that any of those keepers have.
So is Brad Stuver a national team keeper now?
No, he's not, because he doesn't have the shot-stopping ability.
Dang, Brad Stuver out here just
my point is, once we're 4 or 5 or 6 players in, no one has it all. We just talked
about Gaga Slonina. Gaga Slonina
does not have the footwork to play for Greg Berhalter right now. He does not have the ability on the ball.
He is ahead of those keepers. He's ahead of Stefan
Fry.
Not at all. Is ahead of Joe Willis today. Stefan Fry is ahead of those keepers today. If you're talking about MLS keepers, you go with the experience and you go with the keepers who have done it for a long time. Now, I'm not saying that Joe Willis is not experienced. I've played with him. I know he's a good person, one, and he is a good keeper. He's a good shot stopper. But in terms of the national team, he's not at that level. So that's what I'm saying. And you also said Brian White. And if I'm looking at the striker position, there's been a lot of uncertainty. But if you're talking about the depth chart of the U.S. men's national team at the striker position, you have Ricardo Pepi and Jesus Ferreira. Right now, that's 1 and 2. Whether you like it or you don't, those are the two players. You could even throw in Timothy Weah, who I think could play the 9, and Jordan Morris as an outside winger who could play the 9. Then you're looking at Daryl Dike, Jordan Pefok, Josh Sargent, Matthew Hoppe, Nicholas Joachini. I probably can keep going. And then you would get to Brian White. So he's not even anywhere near the stratosphere.
And he's also been hurt. He just scored his first goal of the season. Brian White. If you were going to go in, and we talked about this, if you're going to dig into that sort of like level, Jeremy Abobasi on form would be the guy that you would roll with, I think. Like if you're going to go down to the like Herc, Edson Buttle zone of like, hey, we're going to the World Cup. We got to have some on form dudes that are just like, I score goals. That's where I'm at right now mentally.
I don't think that's what you're looking for. But I think you're looking for a player.
I'm not saying anything about MLS players having success and saying they can't be a national team player. What I am saying is quality, you know what you're getting from certain players. And it's more than just scoring a goal. I think the center I think the center forward conversation is a little different because you can play someone out of position. You could play a Weah, you could play a Pulisic, you could play Jordan Morris, whatever. Let me just give you a Weeby list right now. Philly, international keeper. Orlando, international keeper. Red Bull, international keeper. Atlanta, Brad Guzan out. Toronto, Alex Bono's probably not coming to a World Cup, but there you go. There's your first one. Montreal, not a U.S. keeper. Gaga Slonina, we don't know. Charlotte, international keeper. Columbus, international keeper. NYCFC, Sean John. There's your option. New England, it's
JT Marcinkowski. Don't
I'm
leave him out.
going through the standings in order. Alec Khan.
We should have been on that David Ochoa train. David Ochoa should be with
Bill
us.
Hamid. There you go. LAFC, international keeper. Austin, Brad Stuver. Galaxy, Jonathan Bond. Getting interesting. Dallas, international keeper. Houston, Steve Clark. Is Steve Clark a World Cup player? There you go. RSL, international keeper. Minnesota,
don't you
Tyler
say international keeper. Zach McMath has played 8 games for RSL. Timmy Melia, Sporting Kansas City. I'll keep going back at you. Steve Clark, Houston. Let's go.
So I'm fine with those guys. My point is, at some point, and we're probably not that far from that with Guzan being out, and the questions around Sean John in big moments, not in MLS Cup last year, but has made mistakes. And if Gaga Slonina is not playing with the U.S. men's national team, you are a Matt Turner and a Zach Steffen injury away from one of these people being a legitimate part of your conversation, and you don't have that many in MLS that are domestic goalkeepers. And if it's not Joe Willis, that's fine. But then it is Steve Clark or Brad Stuver or Stephen Fry.
I thought Anders was going to hit us with the buzzer. I saw him pop up here and his little screen within our screens, and I was like, he's about to hit us with the buzzer, and I got excited about it. We did have a really good question from Jason Kaminga, but we'll have to visit that at a different day about sort of the market from MLS Next Pro and otherwise. But we'll get to that. No worries about it. Been a long show. Hope that you enjoyed it. We definitely did. Big thanks to Anders, of course, for pushing all the buttons behind the scenes and being the idea man in this squad. Charlie Davies, good to chat. David Goss, always a pleasure. That's it for us. Enjoy the weekend. Week 8 is on the docket, folks. Full coverage, MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app. We'll be back on Monday to wrap it all up. Adios.
Goss trying to get me heated.
Congratulations. You made it through more than an hour of extra time. That means you love the show. And if you love the show, you probably want more episodes. Click right here for more episodes of Extra Time and here to subscribe to the MLS YouTube channel. Thanks for following along.